Well, hello everyone. I was just thinking it'd be fun to share my thoughts on kind of how the universe works, okay? Because we have a lot of big questions that are hard to answer, and because if you think about like, okay, we want to know how the universe works, but we're such a small part of the universe, it's really hard to even observe it. So that's why we use the expression the observable universe, right? So what we can see with our equipment is only the observable universe. Okay, now, and then on the other hand, the discussion that comes out of religion is there any such thing as God? Is there any such thing as heaven? And all this type of thing. And it's also a very big question where it's something that's difficult to observe, and that's why it's hard to answer. And so that's where we really need to be open-minded and flexible if we're going to talk about this stuff. And that's kind of where we run into problems, is when people decide they have the absolute truth about something and they're willing to fight for it or something like this, right? So I think it's a better idea to be really open-minded and flexible if we're talking about something that's not really observable to us, at least in the physical sense. What we need to rely on more is, so when you know something, it's solid, you know it. There's no doubt, like, and then there's plenty of proof and people to support you, but to sense something is different, so it's like, okay, like, I know what's right in front of me. Like, when I look at this, well, I know what's right in front of me, but if I had to go blindfolded and I didn't know the room, I would have to use my other senses. We rely so much on our eyes to know what's in front of us. You close your eyes and all you have are your fingers. It's a real fun guessing game. Maybe you could play a game, have somebody close their eyes, put something in their hand, and see if they can guess what it is by feeling it. So in that case, you might say, well, I sense that you gave me a remote control, okay? Maybe, I get my eyes closed. I sense that this is a bottle of water. So I don't want to say that I know for sure, because I might open my eyes and find that it's not a bottle of water, it's nothing but a bottle of piss, right? So it feels like a bottle of water, but I'm not going to know until I get my eyes open. So so what we do up here, like our eyes and our ears and our brain, it all seems to be the place for knowing things, that like you own the knowledge. We can gain knowledge that is truthful and factual, that type of thing. But to know something in your heart isn't really knowing, it's more sensing. So you know something in your heart because you can feel it. You're feeling in the dark. You're working with less senses, that are reliable. Like, it seems that our eyes and ears are pretty reliable. Okay, but when we come to using our intuition and stuff like that, it's a little less reliable. Well, no, it's a lot less reliable. It's just not as reliable, but sometimes it helps, Sometimes it does help when you need to make a split-second decision, Sometimes that's when you need to rely on, like, if you don't have the knowledge to support the decision, maybe you only have what you can sense, like you're feeling your way through a situation, and you can't really ask anyone for help. Then that's when your sensitivity is going to be helpful. So in martial arts, for example, something I do is we practice Tai Chi. And once you learn a little bit of Tai Chi, then we'll put the blindfold on you just for that same reason. So you get with your partner, you put your forearms together, and you start to move around and see if you can sense where that person is, And so that's what I love about martial arts training, because it's all about awareness. So we have to take our awareness into consideration when we're talking about, how the above and beyond is going to work. We're talking about stuff that's not observable to the eyes, and that, we can't really say exactly what the universe looks like, but we can assume, we figured the solar system, it's got the sun in the middle, and it's kind of like everything's on one level, and all the planets are kind of right in there. And we kind of think the galaxy looks like that too, like we have a galactic sun, and then all the stuff out here, all the stars that make the galaxy are kind of working in the same plane. There's a pretty good chance the universe looks like that too. It may also have like a central sun. So in theory, like, maybe nobody's ever found it, but the universe could have a central sun, and it could have a bunch of galaxies that are kind of spread out in a flat shape. So so it's okay to speculate, and then eventually we might find out. Maybe we'll find some good physical proof somehow. But we can definitely see what we've got in our our solar system and part of the galaxy. Now, we've never had this perspective before, like, you know, 2,000 plus years ago, when these ideas were being brought to us. Like, it's hard to say, you know, if we had space travelers trying to tell us stuff that we shouldn't be able to know at that time, or just good old intuition. Maybe there, you know, so many people have been left alone or brought close enough to death that they may, you know, when we have near-death experiences or just really pushed to the brink, sometimes people do get knowledge from being out of body, you know. So that's where, like, for example, okay, so my grandma Smith, she ended up in the hospital and she almost died. She flatlined, and my grandpa demanded that they don't take her off the equipment, so they actually kept her plugged in for 3 days while she flatlined, and normally that doesn't happen. But she had a really good near-death experience, and she said, you know, there are a number of stories that come with that I'd like to share again. Maybe, I think I've expressed this before, but I think I should do a special video just for my grandma Smith's flatline experience, because there's a few valuable pieces of confirmation that come with that. And so on one side there's life, on one side there's the void. So you get these two forces in nature, basically, is the living universe and then empty space, you know. Now, she was taken out far enough to take a look at the universe. She said it was very beautiful, but she didn't have any way to describe it. So I really wish she could have at least given me an idea that, well, it looks kind of like a big giant galaxy or something. So who knows? But anyways, sometimes we get these really ancient ideas and they're somewhat correct, but they might be coming from somebody who doesn't really have that type of physical perspective. Like, people back so long ago really didn't have a way to figure out, you know, that we're on a planet moving around a sun. Like, we figured that out pretty recently. If you look at human history, there's still people wondering if the Earth's flat, right? You know, that people still aren't willing to accept that it's, you know, kind of a ball-shaped type of thing that, you know, and it makes more sense to me, right? So anyways, I just thought it would be interesting to share my perspective on, you know, how it works. So I call it my understanding. I'm not going to say I know how the universe works and I know this and I know that, but I definitely sense the truth in a lot of this. Like, okay, so the scientific aspect is we're learning to learn from what we're able to observe with our eyes and our senses and our equipment, right? So we're building an observable set of knowledge, you know. It's provable. Anybody will see the same thing if they're looking at the same object, right? So observable facts are very scientific, but then when we talk about what's coming from the spiritual side and the religious side, it seems to be a lot less scientific, and that's where we're dealing in using our other senses, you know, so our intuition, what we sense in our heart, as any form of confirmation. So when it comes to that topic, so it seems that you know, maybe mankind's kind of going through these phases, you know. So the Holy Trinity reflects the three components of the universe. So the living universe has three basic components. Now here's a funny thing, well, not that it's funny, but if we back up and look at the Taoist perspective, at the yin and yang sign, it represents duality, so fullness and emptiness. So like my grandma was saying, on one side is all life, on the other side is the void, and those are the two forces that are moving each other, so they affect each other. And then you gotta wonder, well, where did that, why is it like that, you know? So natural law seems to be a law that exists with or without a creator. So people say where there's a law, there's a creator. I think it's the other way around. That whatever nature allows goes on and happens. So the reason we have a living universe is nature allows it, and something about nature is causing it. So really, you know, it doesn't make nature God, but it's definitely primary to anything that follows, because, and after that you have a living universe that has three components. Now, when you step back and look at the all, everything in nature, in the duality, then you can imagine if you took the number 1 and multiplied it and you get 2. You multiply it, you get 4. You multiply it, you get 8. And every time you multiply these numbers by 2, you get a number that reduces to either 1, 2, 4, 5, or 7, but never 3, 6, or 9. Those numbers represent the three components of the universe. So the first thing is the the quantum energetic field. So that's the field of energy that is basically what everything's made out of. But what sets that energy in motion is frequency. So that might be what conscious presence is the frequency. It's setting this energy in motion and bringing about, thirdly, the vibration. And so that's kind of like the outcome, and the vibration is what the next step to everything that manifests from there on, because we figured out that if you break the atom down to the subatomic particle, it's almost like there's nothing but a vibration there. So the idea that the universe, or everything was created with words, so vibration set everything in motion. Vibration is what started, so it all started with sound, it all started with the word. That's because the conscious presence is impacting upon the energetic field. And then whatever we imagine, for example, like, so the same thing that applies to the living universe applies to everyone in it. Whether you're like the original, so what we call our Father in Heaven might be the original time there was ever a soul, a conscious presence, and since then it's been multiplying, and so it breaks down to all these different galaxies and all these different solar systems. So in a ways, it's like the whole universe, if it had a spirit, that would probably be what we mean, like when we're talking in Christian terminology, to say our Father in Heaven. But then the Holy Spirit, it's like that quantum energetic field. So when he starts thinking shit up and puts and impresses upon that energy, then it starts to make things take shape. Now the thing is we can only do what nature was going to allow us, so we're going to find nature's boundaries as we go. And so that's why everything takes the shape that it does. That's why everything is kind of circular, spherical. And if you look at the way living things are built, it all seems to have, circuitry of some kind, Everything needs to have a type of circuitry and connection, being connected. So anyways, we might come to find that the living universe is like one big living system. We might look at it like that eventually. And that's how we should look at it, is like people starting to understand the Earth is a living system. It's like the planet itself might have a conscious presence. That's why people want us to learn to talk to the Earth. So the Earth is connected to the sun, so all the planets are connected to the sun, so it sends it's like everything's communicating to each other, kind of like a neural network. So the connection we have to the sun, there's energy being sent, not with only an energy, but intelligence. There's information along with that energy. And then the sun connects to the galactic center, and it connects to the universal center, which is kind of like the main brain of the whole system of the universe. So just I don't know if we can do this. Too dark? Oh, it's not too dark. It's just a really quick sketch. This is like the universal center. Now there could be lots of galaxies, but imagine that's ours, and there's a line of energy there. And then within the galaxy, there's lots of suns, but there's a line of energy connecting this. And there is how we are able to communicate with what we call our Father in Heaven. So who knows? Maybe that's the idea. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the sun is Jesus or something. That's not what I'm saying. But it's just how things break down. There's like a parallel in the Holy Trinity and the three components of the universe, okay? And so the universe and yourself has that in common. And so, like, that's where the seed of the soul is somewhere in here. It seems to be up here in our head. That's where we seem to exist. And so the second component is at your heart. And so that's the correlation to energy. So that's where we sense things, is through the energetic field. So there's energy all around us. Like, so you have an aura. It's like an energy body that comes out to here. And when you come around other people and your auras touch together, you might pick up things on an intuitive level about that person. You might not know intellectually why, but you may know that you should get away from them, or you should keep them around you, one of the two, or you might pick, so that's how somebody that might be psychically sensitive might come in contact with somebody. It's like through the energy, they might be able to gain information, and if they have enough clarity up here, it may translate to something that they can define. You know, they can define exactly what they're sensing because they have the clarity to do so. Now the third part, it seems to be when you put those two together and you get that vibration, that seems to bring about manifestation. And so that's where maybe the in the Holy Trinity, the third part represents that first personhood where all three things are present. So there's spirit, there's energy, and there's embodiment. So it seems that vibration goes hand in hand with our embodiment, see? So that might be what we're talking about. The Son of God is the first time we have complete embodiment of complete being, you know? And so that's where we have that in common, is those three components, that we have the soul and the spirit. And so the soul part is what we can connect with, what we call our Father in heaven. The spirit part is what, like our heart, is what we connect with heaven. So whether these places exist or not, it's sort of to do with that conscious presence is all kind of linked together by all these lines of energy. For example, we're kind of linked to each other a little bit. That's why we might pick up on things intuitively. And then if you're learning from the earth, you know, so the Native Americans recommend, you know, kind of sitting up against a tree or sitting with the rocks. You can learn from the rocks, you can learn from the trees, because it's through the energetic field, you know. So if you're able to let the information travel from its energy body to your energy body, it may come through as something you can understand intellectually. So now, so there's talk about like the solar flash coming up and what it might entail. And it may not necessarily be lethal. It may be something that, it's like a burst of universal energy. So it's thought that, like, say, we're getting a pulse that comes from the universal star. It's kind of like I kind of think of it as the main brain of the universe. It's like the center part. And that's going to feed our galaxy. So I don't know if it hits all of them or if it's just something that's going our general direction. So maybe our area of the universe is getting this burst, you know. So this pulse is being sent out from the center of the universe. And when it reaches the galactic center, then it's going to impact our star, or our sun. So I'm not sure if that means every star in our galaxy gets this, or just ours, or just some of the ones over here. So yeah, so this pulse coming from the universal center may be part of what happens when there's a solar flare. So they're talking about, like, the sun will kind of get dim and then it'll do a solar flash. So in theory, this is like how, so there's another fun question, is evolution versus creation. It's kind of both, you know, like the people who think things have started from single cell life forms and not evolved, but came to be animals before there were human beings. Well, that's the same process as like when you having a baby, you know, and it's a single cell thing, you know, up in your ovary until it comes down and joins with the semen. So one of those little sperms gets with that egg and then it starts developing, you know. So what you have is kind of an animal product, and so whether the soul enters it or not may be determined by if it's going to be a success at the end. Because like if you know, when you're on the other side, we can kind of see potentials. We can see the potential future. So for those of you worry about abortion, those babies probably not got a soul yet. God wouldn't put a soul in that, but the baby might not get a soul till they've come out and developed enough to be able to take one on. So some people think it takes till you're about 2 years old sometimes. So, you know, some babies could be born with a soul already. It's hard to say exactly how that works, but it might not be like the second the sperm hits the egg, you know, like it has to get big enough and grow some matter, because the brain facilitates the soul. That's why. So you need an embodiment to facilitate the soul that we have to be human. And that's why, so first of all, the baby in the womb is going to go through phases of development, and then when it comes out into the open, you're going to have a helpless baby that somebody needs to take care of, and then they grow up and then they can take care of you. But that's how life on earth works, just like you having a baby. And the reason for that is because we're getting the encodement from the universal center. So this information goes out into the whole universe, and anytime there's the potentiality for this type of life to exist. So there could be lots of planets, you know, like ours, where there's plants and animals and stuff, and you might find that everything's kind of similar, but the evolution is going to be based on the content of the sun and the planet and the whole arrangement there. That's going to be, evolution is more adaptation and learning, so that's always taken place. But the creation aspect, meaning that, you know, there was meant to be these phases. That means there was meant to be animals, and there were meant to be humans eventually, that were like the what the earth was made for. And so it's like we're going through the 3 stages of development, where we're just an animal at one stage. So when we had dinosaurs and reptiles, you know, that was like the king of the earth. The reptiles were the king of the earth. Those were just animals, and they had a basic brain. And from then we became warm-blooded animals like the birds and the mammals. And those have a secondary portion of the brain called the limbic brain. So they have a secondary portion of the brain. And then thirdly, human beings came along who have the neocortex. Now, those 3 portions seem to correspond again with that Holy Trinity and those 3 universal components, where the neocortex-bearing animal, for intellectual, we really function a lot more up here than a lot of the other animals. So now other animals are capable of probably thinking about stuff or realizing things, but we are like, the neocortex facilitates this. That's why we're able to do everything. Now the limbic facilitates, it seems to be more emotional and sensitivity. So it seems that the more warm-blooded animals, are more warm-hearted than the ones that are not warm-blooded. Although it does seem like you can gain some affection out of fish and reptiles. Some of them do have a friendly side. You'd think a better pet would be something like a cat or a dog, or something that's warm-blooded for sure. Seem to be more warm-hearted, and warm-blooded animals seem to have so many more forms of expression, more expressive, and the more complex they are, the more we get a kick out of them, because they seem so human-like, because they have all these different emotions, and able to have a sense of fun, able to kind of be afraid of things, be upset about things. We just think it's so cute to see how a dog's eyes are just like people. But so if you look at how the unfoldment of the planet is, with just the animal, that's kind of like our embodiment. The limbic is kind of like, it has more heart, more spirit expression, and then the neocortex bearing animals, much more intellectually capable. And so these three components are represented by 3, 6, and 9. And as I was saying, it's funny how, like, when you take the number 1 and double it, and then for some reason, like, okay, so if you double something like the number 8 and you get 16, it equals 5 because you put the 1 and the 6 together. If you double 16 and you get 32, add it together. Or actually, I meant to say 7. On 16, it would be 7. On 32, it would be 5. And that's how you get those funny numbers. So it's kind of funny when you look at that that system. So that's those numbers represent duality, 1, 2, 4, and 8, and on and on. But numbers 3, 6, and 9 seem to represent what we call the living universe, and they correspond. I think 3 corresponds to spirit, the spirit energy field. 3 is a spiritual number. For some reason, 6, we assign that to the frequency. So the thing that makes frequency is the mind of the universe, or the mind in your head as well. And then 9 represents the vibration. So it's funny. You would think I kind of think 3 is primary to 6, right? So it seems like there was an energetic field. So it's really hard to explain, like when we look at like what's at the beginning, like how it got started, you know, that's something I can accept, that I just don't know, you know, like how it came to be. But what we can accept that we know, which is somewhat observable, are the 3 components, are the conscious presence. You have that. The spirit, you have that. And then the next center down would be around our, what Chinese called the Dantian. That's where the center of our body is physically. So I think of those three centers as kind of matching the three components of the universe. So regardless of how it got to be where it is and all that stuff, if you could get that figured out, that really helps answer a lot of big questions, where I think this is something where I have the understanding. I'm going to say, I know this is exactly what the universe looks like, and how it works. But we're becoming an animal that can understand more things. Like, you know, you can't talk to your cat and dog about this stuff. Like, you're lucky if you can find another person you can talk to about this stuff. And so some people will say, well, I just read the Bible and I just need my Bible. I don't really need anything else. Well, you're really shutting yourself off to other forms of learning, you know, and sensing through the, you know, because if you have the understanding that God is universal, it's like everywhere. It's the Spirit is everywhere. So Spirit and God is everywhere. And Jesus, what we call the Son of God, might represent that first personhood where maybe all these things are complete in a being. And this is our ancestor. So this is where we also, I think, consider him to be a father. So this, whether we call him Jesus or not, or Michael, according to the Urantia, doesn't matter. But it makes sense that, you know, this type of being is the first one, and it's the one that we are all descending from. So there may be, you know, other planets that have not only plants and animals, but neocortex-bearing animals like ourselves, or something similar that has the same three components. You know, everything's going to have some kind of embodiment. Everything requires energy. But it's that conscious presence. It's almost like this force of nature that's kind of blowing things into the shape that it is, you know. And so we're taking the best shape possible. So when we talk about what is God, that could simply be the original source of soul matter and the original point of conscious presence that started to set everything in motion. What we call heaven and the Holy Spirit are kind of hand in hand, because it's the energetic quantum field. But heaven may also be the best potential reality. So there might be, like, if you get to the center of your galaxy or closer to the center of the universe, it's like getting closer to heaven because the conditions are better. So the in our galaxy, in theory, the galactic sun is here and we're out here cruising closer to the edge. So we kind of get a much colder reality than they do here in closer to the galactic sun. They have more of a warmer reality, probably a lot less suffering and pain. So in comparison, would seem like paradise compared to what we have. If you go into the closer to the galactic center, there's just more life force energy there to nourish the planets and the beings that are living there. So we probably don't have the best possible conditions in the galaxy or the universe out here on Earth. So we have the idea that it could be better. It could definitely be a lot better. And and so Earth and its sun, if it continues to live on and on, might get closer to the galactic center, like over, like, you know, billions of years. But in theory, there's also these photon bands that come off of the galactic center, and that when our planets cruise through them, it kind of like raises the energy. So we might experience also an improvement in our reality, kind of like a season. It's like a galactic season, kind of like if you like summer and it's your favorite season of the year, then and we're coming into a galactic summer, for that matter. So that's another way to for the galaxy or the universal center and all that to send us information. So there's a theory that also, so again, what is giving the blueprint for Earth to unfold as it does, you know, it's the information coming through like cosmic rays of some sort, right? So the idea of cosmic rays, you know, so when the sun's shining on us, it's not just sending heat, it's also sending information, and that information comes from the galactic center, which comes from the universal center. And if we get a burst, like if the sun sent, say, a burst of energy, it could actually cause a genetic upstep in all of the life on Earth. So that's where the genetic information is coming from. You know, because it kind of doesn't make sense. How does it all come just from Earth? No, it's coming, you know, it's kind of being spread throughout the universe in theory. So if we get that, what you call the the sun flare, if it doesn't like burn us all to death, I guess. It could actually, you know, like if it's something you survive and it doesn't, is not harmful in theory, it could actually give us an improvement, you know. It could improve our physical condition. Who knows, maybe it gives us a burst of life force energy. And so I think that our life condition is relative to how much life force energy we're getting at any given location in our galaxy or in the universe. So it's like that. That's why, you know, Earth isn't the best place to live. It's like it has so much life force energy, but we're being exposed to the empty outer space enough that it has impact on us to where it kind of makes our reality a bit colder than it could be other ways. If you were immersed in that life force energy that, you know, when you get closer to the galactic center or you're in one of those photon bands, you get so much of that, it actually protects you from the empty outer space. And so that's where they may experience more longevity, you know. So according to like the Urantia and some sort of historic text, there could be beings that came from other planets that were immortal or lived for hundreds of years. And that might be why, because they've come from a higher planet that has a longer lifespan, and being here on Earth, it shortens your lifespan because we're getting so much of that exposure from the empty outer space. So that's why, you know, it's not fair to say that life sucks. It's more that it's a lack of life that sucks. So when, like, for example, people that are Christian, if they're praying and they want to bring about more Holy Spirit, it's really, you know, that life force energy that's going to nourish us. That's what brings heaven on earth, because what heaven is a place where there's so much life force energy that the empty outer space doesn't have impact on them. And so if you make it to heaven, you can live forever and ever, and there's no suffering because you're immersed in life force energy, again, without the impact of empty outer space. Now, you know, if we send you to outer space and you climb out of the spaceship without your protection on, it will kill you. Outer space is that force of nature. There's no life. There's no conscious presence. There's nothing there to protect you. And so everything in nature, you know, has a practical form. So like there's going to be a scientific explanation for everything. Everything connects a certain way. And that's all held together so that way, you know, the empty outer space doesn't destroy it all. So now the way the empty outer space can affect our soul is, you know, by making you suffer, right? So if you're not getting a lot of love and nourishment, you can go into a dark place and be suffering in, you know, it could be hell on earth for you. And you could be somebody that just wants to end your life, or just be a destructive person, you know, because what you call answering to the calling of the void, you know. So that's when, that's what probably brings about dark beings, you know. If they're, in theory, there are beings in the other side that are around us, you know, they have the idea of angels and demons. Well, in theory, something that's demonic is a being that is acting on the calling of the void, a being that is angelic, whether it's an angel or not. You might be an angelic being, right? Because you want to act on the calling of heaven, and those are the desire to protect and nourish and care for, you know, just stuff that we do anyways, right? So that's very limbic of us, right? To be caring and loving and all this type of expression, you know, fun-loving animals that we are. Anyways, don't want to make this video for too long. I really wanted to break down again how we see the three components. They are pretty observable, and they correspond to, like, is there God? Well, it's something that's such a big matter, we can't really see it, but the component that equates is the part of you that is a soul. So that's the part of us that is related to God and godlike, or, you know, so that doesn't make us God, but collectively, and with the universal soul, we all participate as a living universe. So that's how we participate in, you know, how would I say this? And together with what we call God, that's what we're trying to learn through religion. So we're looking for this spiritual knowledge, and it's coming in different forms of religion, and we're getting cool ideas like you have to choose eternal life. Okay, that's the way, you know, you join our will. So the thing that keeps the universe alive in part is will. Actually, it's a lot of it, because empty outer space is trying to destroy the universe. Well, it's not really trying, it just does. There's no reason for it. It's just, you know, one force acting on another. And so it manifests as other just unpleasant things, you know, like that's why, okay, so on one side, that universal conscious presence as a force in nature is blowing us into shape, you know, we're taking shape and we're going as far as we can. And we can only go as far as nature will let us. And then you get old and you die. And so that's not really what, you know, if we have a God or all this stuff, they wouldn't say, okay, make sure this, and this happens, and make sure they eat cute fuzzy animals, make sure they shit and it stinks, and then make sure they suffer in pain, and make sure they die. Like, nobody said that. This is because, you know, we just want to exist in a form that we can communicate, experience in. Like, it's really hard to say what the meaning of life is, but we definitely trying to take a form that can withstand the forces of nature. But at the same time, you know, it can only go so far. And so that explains the unpleasant things in life, because people say God doesn't exist because their brother died, or because people are being murdered, or because this and this and this. And these are not things that any kind of a God or, you know, loving being or any one of us, you know, if we're part of Creator, would choose. You know, no one say, well, make sure da happens. Not at all. That's where we got to understand the difference between how conscious of presence affects the outcome of reality is has all the best intentions, right? We have all the best intentions to live long and to have a good life, but it's the forces in nature, you know, like not just the void, but just every other thing that comes along, and it just breaks down the structure. And that's like if you were blowing bubbles, like you can blow bubbles all you want, but those bubbles are going to get popped after a while, because the other forces in nature pop the bubbles. And that's why we die. That's why we hardly ever make it past 100. So anyways, that's just my take on like the construct of the universe and how we might explain, you know, these three components. So the conscious presence is corresponding to our Father in Heaven for the Christian terminology. And then the Holy Spirit that ties in with the component of the universe that is the energetic quantum field. And then finally, the vibration and the embodiment is the first personhood of the universe. We might call it the Son or Jesus. And so everybody has the same thing. It doesn't matter what we call it. They might have another name for it in another planet. Now, before the what we call the word of Jesus, okay, there was always some kind of spiritual knowledge. People already knew there was a spirit reality. They already knew there was a Father in heaven. So like if it's something where people that are Christian think everybody else is going to hell because they don't have this final piece of information, well, that's because that information wasn't available yet. So, you know, according to the Urantia book, a lot of things were set up for this region of the earth to accept Jesus. So Jesus is like our like the local universe. So if we're in multiple universes, in theory, according to the Urantia, there's actually more than one Jesus. There's like, he has brothers and sisters. There could be like 250,000 of them if there's a multiple universe. So that's a very fun theory. So in theory, we're in a universe where Jesus is kind of like, they also say he's Michael. He's got a planet that he lives on. It's probably in the highest reality, so the probably best potential reality, so like paradise. Okay, and that that's kind of like how you are to your body. You know, you're the soul of your body. That's kind of like the soul of our universe, and that he had to take on incarnations on different types of planets, and that he came to planet Earth, and like all this stuff was set up. So it's kind of like the Judaic branch, were the people that were getting trained and prepared for him to come along. So it's kind of ironic that he shows up and everything happens like it's supposed to, and the dumbasses killed him. Stupid assholes. So I don't understand it. So like my little joke is these people are such a bunch of Jesus killers. Like I don't understand it. So there could have been a misunderstanding. And so like that's why, you know, it all had to go down the way it did. And, you know, so even if it's just a story, there's a lot of great concepts that come with it, you know, because we can't prove if he existed or not and stuff like that. But again, when my grandma flatlined, she felt that she got the confirmation that he did come, he does exist, and he's the one that, you know, he gave her a lot of cool little lessons when she was there. And so, anyways, all the other people in the world that don't have this concept, that's because it didn't show up until, like, what, 2,000 years ago in just like a really good central part of the earth. And the idea is this is all supposed to spread around, you know, it's supposed to get around to everyone. So you get the idea of the Holy Trinity and the three components of the universe, and you're going, well, why do we even need to know this stuff if we're just such a small part of the universe? Because you are a conscious presence, you are a force of nature. And so this is all meant to educate us so that way we can participate correctly in cooperation. So God doesn't want a bunch of conformists that do what they're told until the rights to you are sold and so on and so forth. But people that can understand what's going on and then participate willingly, knowing that you want to live forever or something like this, right? So as a soul, we may reincarnate, you know, go out of this body into another body. And it's hard to explain how that works. Now, the Tibetan Book of the Dead is another fun book to read. And there's a wide variety of possibilities out there. There's everything from the highest level of hell, highest level of heaven, to the lowest level of hell. So they get the spectrum of highest to the poorest state of reality there. So they believe there's an afterlife, you're a soul, and there's heaven and hell, and there's a God, you know. So Buddha, Gautama, he was in heaven before he came here. And he wants to teach people how to get there. So once you've been there, you can always get back there again. And so that was his plan. And when you go back, you should try to take somebody with you, right? So, so I think I could be one of those people, you know, because as long as I've been alive, I've always known life could be better. This isn't really a free country. They just keep telling us that, so we'll stop complaining. So, actually, are we going to heaven? You bet we are. Now, it's all very simple. So back to the energy thing. This affects this. So like how you think is going to affect the health of your energy, and the other way around. So the more energy you have, the easier it is to be happy and be thoughtful of others and that type of thing. And but if your health is poor, sometimes it takes you into darker places. So you might look at that, or other way around. If you've been going into darker places, it's also impacted the other way. So that's how one affects the other. And so our health is impacted by if we're getting a lot of energy and the thoughts we have and how it's going to impact upon our energy. So these are some really colorful ideas that might work actually. So if you just understand that everything's made of energy and that you are a force of nature, the final outcome as life as we know it is because of conscious presence, you know. Someplace, but it's also because of forces of nature that are not, that are its equal and opposite. So all you can really do is just try to stay full-hearted, and that's not easy to do. That's why it takes a lot of hard work and self-discipline. You don't want to have a false sense of happiness by doing this and just ignoring shit. If you can embrace reality, realizing just how bad everything could be, but at the same time just as good as everything could be, that's the discipline it takes to stay in higher spirits. You know, you don't want to be all, I'm so happy, ha ha ha. But to just be generally happy and content, you know. It does help if you have the right perspective. You can't just say, I'm just going to be happy no matter what, because you're blind to things. To be able to be aware of everything and stay happy is the idea. And not only that, but it's contagious. So again, if we can spread that mentality and get everybody happy, you know. So I do this all day long at my job. I try to get everybody happy, you know, try to get everyone connecting, you know, and let everybody feel like, you know, you're aware of them, that you see the person in there, you know, you're not just a number. So spiritual discipline, it's kind of simple, it's just not easy. So many things are pushing against it, but it's just really, as we come into contact with people, let them know that you're a friendly sort and you're helpful. Like, you can't just give things away, you know. I'm not gonna just give you my money, but you're friendly and helpful, and you wish well for others. pretty simple, and do that all day long. So anyways, I got a little bit off on a tangent here because I just wanted to talk about how the universe basically works, and that it is to some extent observable, that you know that you are a conscious presence, you know you have energy, you feel in your heart, and you know that you have a center to your body, and it can be proven. So maybe someday science will be able to explain exactly what the whole structure looks like. And so far they got a good idea. I don't know if they're calling it string theory, but just meaning that the universe works like a neural network. So that's where we do get intelligence from above and beyond. And there could potentially be other beings that reside in parts of the galaxy or the universe where they get much better energy levels, so they could be functioning on a higher level. And the way some of these beings communicate is some of them do saddle up and travel, so they do have spaceships that come to Earth, but some of them don't really need to saddle up on anything. They can just kind of like stay in their planet and communicate from where they are. Like if Jesus had a planet, he's communicating to the whole everybody in the universe at one time, you know, like it's simultaneous. So we probably couldn't do that, you know, we're not built for that, but you know, the soul of the universe is built like that. They can communicate with us all simultaneously and be aware of everything, and at the same time there's beings on every level from beneath us, as we know, to everything to the top of the universe. So in between there we could have other beings here, right here in the galaxy, that are much better off than we are on their level of perception. Like they can see way better than we can what's really going on. And so there are channels out there right now that are making videos and online, and it seems like they're awfully right about a lot of things. So when you listen to these channelers, again, you're kind of using this as like, you're kind of like feeling in the dark. Are they right? Are they wrong? You can just be open-minded. If we're going to talk about, does heaven exist? Does God exist? Whether it exists or not depends on our definition of what it is. The God that does not exist is a man-made God that controls everything, and he decides to make this part of your life pleasant. He decides to make this part of your life not pleasant. But we can be guides to each other. So, you know, it's like your mom and dad would probably want the best thing for you. They can't be there to stop everything bad from happening to you, but they can guide you. And if you shut the fuck up and listen once in a while, your parents could keep you out of a lot of trouble, or any of the elders in your life. And so that's kind of what our Father in heaven is. It's like the ancestor, if you could say, tap into that energy, you know, and be able to communicate for everything from the people beside you to the most highest, and everyone in between. You know, we're all connected, right? So that way, you know, if we're talking to, say, an extraterrestrial from another planet, they're kind of telling us what God would want to tell us. Or if you're talking to a really good minister, they're telling you what God would want to tell you, and they're just another person. But they can be an open vessel to what God would want to tell you, right? Kind of like myself. So at times, you know, you might want to pay attention, because I kind of, I work that way too. Some of the stuff I'm telling you is what God would want to tell you, like, that the conscious presence component of the universe only wants the best things to happen in life. So we, you know, when we have bad things happen to us, no one plans those. That we are all subject to the forces of nature that can be destructive to the living structures out here, you know. And it might not, you know, like let's say you physically die, but then the soul lives on, you know, you go into another body, you know. This is why we have these cycles and all this stuff. So those are not, you know, God never intended for those type of things to happen. So those are just forces of nature that, it's kind of funny, like insurance tries to call it an act of God. It's not, it's just an act of nature. Like a tornado or something. Like there's no God saying, hey, let's make sure this tornado goes right over here and hits Sam's house. Now there could be influence, you know, sometimes the spirit influences the things around us, like, you know, but in general, we gotta be open-minded to the fact that conscious presence acts as a force of nature, kind of pushing in one direction, but the opposite is the very absence of such. And that energy, that lack of, like, the empty space, that's what we're trying to survive. So it's just amazing that we're in this little planet out here surviving in empty space. that in itself is a miracle, the fact that you even exist. But again, what the key ingredient to all biological life is conscious presence, and the thing that sustains it is the willing to do so. And otherwise, scientists are going, the universe shouldn't even exist. Like, nature should have destroyed it by now. So the whole fact that you even exist is a miracle in itself, let alone that the fact that you are able to discuss your existence. Anyways, you guys, I think this is an important subject to reflect on. So I took a lot longer than I expected to share this. So you have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.